Pretty cute, right? Or maybe you're not a fan of the delicate, quivering, shivering Chihuahua. With so many stronger, hardier animals, like the red gazelle or the North African elephant having gone extinct, you have to ask yourself, why hasn't the Chihuahua gone extinct? I mean, look at it. Back in 1907, a story ran in the New York Tribune mourning the passing of the Chihuahua dog. But it's still here. There's a lot of reasons why an animal can go extinct, like loss of habitat, disease, or even natural disasters. But it's important to recognize when a threat is a real threat or just an alarming projection made without any real evidence. Like, for example, the black rhinoceros in Zimbabwe.
Between 1970 and the mid-1990s, the black rhinoceros in Africa suffered about a 95% decline in their numbers. Rhino horn is prized by all kinds of people for supposed folk remedies. People use them for dagger handles. Now, what a lot of African governments did was to make poaching illegal and try and hunt down poachers and catch them and whatnot.
The no-kill laws came from a very well-intentioned place. Here's this species of animal that's endangered, and we should do something to protect it.
It's turned out to be very ineffective.
It created a black market for poaching.
Because, of course, when you make something illegal, you make it more valuable.
So what happened? People poached them and killed them until the populations went down.
The problem is, even if you're not allowed to kill it, there's no incentive to try to grow the population either.
When you have a common pool resource, an animal that no one owns, on land that no one owns, there's no incentive for someone to protect that species.
So we're just trying to save what we had, but there's no real mechanism for trying to get that species to thrive again.
The alternative to this has been to put rhinos on private land and let people own them on private game preserves.
In Zimbabwe, when they privatized them and created safaris and made them valuable to the communities, the populations exploded.
And so when people can own a rhinoceros, it becomes an economic resource.
Zimbabwe, famous for abundant wildlife, lush scenery, and pristine terrain. Zimbabwe taps into the adventurous side of all of us, with so much to offer, like a morning game drive where you can behold the elusive black rhino, dining among the diverse wildlife, or canoeing down the scenic Zambezi River, the fourth longest river in Africa. Well, you get the point. These private conservancies offer things like photo safaris, bird watching, and a chance to see the big five: rhinoceros, elephant, lion, leopard, and buffalo. But you're probably thinking you can see all those things at public parks too. So what's the difference?
Most everyone is familiar with public conservation, things like our national parks and our national forests. But most people are not as familiar with the effects of private conservation and the way private incentives and private markets can serve the same ends as things like our national parks. One of the most path-breaking insights into the problem of conservation came in a 1968 article called The Tragedy of the Commons by a famous ecologist named Garrett Hardin. And his insight was simple. When you have a common pool resource, there's no incentive to conserve. There's no incentive to propagate the species. And in fact, the incentives are just the other way around. And so we overutilize resources when we hold them in common. You can apply it to forestry, you can apply it to ocean fisheries and lots of things. If you don't cut down that last tree, then your neighbor will. If you don't catch that last fish, then the next boat will come along, will catch it.
When you own something, you are much more likely to try to take care of it.
Maybe the most obvious example of the tragedy of the commons at work in American history is the buffalo. There used to be millions of them on the Great Plain. No one owned them. We hunted them almost to extinction, mostly for sport. Today, buffalo are coming back, and they're coming back almost overwhelmingly on private land. People have figured out they're a good food source. And that's the basic insight behind private conservation, is when you own something, you will take better care of it.
Private conservation works more effectively than restrictions on human behavior. That makes sense. And the Chihuahua dog could have never really survived on its own in the wild. Owning pets is private conservation. You're one lucky puppy.